VoyMonk here, and so this is a Friday video voice vlog, and of course, I don't really know what the hell I'm doing there. I don't know. I guess trying to maybe put a little bit of seasoning on this a little bit to not try to go over the top, but at least, I don't know, make it a little bit more fun for myself. Which, if I'm not having fun, what am I doing, right? So, yeah, like I said, I start out this week talking about self-awareness and basically the reason why I do this and what that actually means, both in this, the history for myself being 46 years old, starting out in radio and learning the aspects and the elements of that, which include a lot of other things that cross over into other mediums like communications, marketing, TV, all kinds of media, and of course, progressively and aggressively as we see it today, meaning podcast and YouTube and social media influencers on other platforms and things like that. And the thing of it is that I love to hit home on this is that because it is true, and it's not a way to fish for compliments or escape out of the fact that I certainly do want to do the best that I can do, the best that I can do it with whatever I can in terms for myself, number one. But of course, if I want to build a channel and build an audience or do whatever, even if that doesn't ever happen, then that's my goal. That's my hill to climb, or mountain to climb, as it were. Probably a hill rather than a mountain, but who knows, right? So yeah, but right off the cuff, I'm boring. I know I'm boring, and I'm not going to offer anyone anything that if they're looking for in terms of drama or excitement or me skydiving or telling you something perfect little spot about my life that is or isn't true from whatever perspective. I'm not here to talk down to you. I'm not here to tell you what you should do or give you some kind of sage advice as though I'm a guru, because I'm not. I'm just a boring guy talking to myself for the most part and interested in whatever is out there and engaging and communicating with those who share a similar passion for 80s and 90s pop culture to just life in general. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm for everyone. And as it sits, there's probably millions of other people. And maybe overblowing that. I don't know the statistics or the numbers per se. I'm sure someone might, but there's probably, hundreds of thousands, probably thousands of people out there that try to do what I'm doing now or do other things as far as to get over, to create content, to be who they are, to, try to sprout their wings and see what may come of it in terms of how they express themselves and how that eventually is realized. The thing of it is that, like I said, there's risks in everything that you do. I've described audiences and the public and people in groups as a wild tiger. A wild tiger, right? Tiger's not necessarily good. Tiger's not necessarily evil. Tiger is just the tiger. And what you can come to expect really, it doesn't have anything to do with what you project, but at the same time, it's not always, something that's easy to read. People say, read the room, right? Well, which room are you talking about, right? Because not all audiences are the same. And that's also why I contend with the not all things for all people, which I think sometimes can really come off the wrong way, especially depending on who's saying it. I'm not speaking as though this would ever be some kind of exclusive club either. I'm not trying to build a community that's based on, some kind of really weird affiliation or perspective that I have that, I want to force other people to share or experience and that kind of thing. I'm just a boring video voice vlogger that, some might go, why don't you show your face? You're ugly? Yes, I'm ugly. And I'm obese. I'm poor. And, there's a lot of things about me that they just are. I'm a complete failure in my life in terms of the things that I want to achieve and accomplish. I'm not holding myself out to be better than anyone else, but I think that's okay. It's tough for me, but this is also not a place for me to emotionally dumping on anybody or, make this about being super positive, but it's also not about being super negative either. It's just a place that hopefully, hey, you like hearing what I have to say. That's, whatever my voice is to you and how you experience it, I don't know. Maybe I can kind of wiggle myself into your conscience a little bit. And maybe you go, hey, I kind of like this. I like this VoyMonk guy. And I would really like to hear more of what he has to say. Or the next step I think would be great in our relationship is if you want to engage, if you want to say, hey, hi, hello, if you want to try your hand at doing the exact same thing or do it in a limited capacity, whatever. I think the world is the world, right? It is what it is. I mean, we're all impacted by the stuff that goes on day to day. And, it's hard. Life is hard. It's difficult. And, I don't have any special meaning or words or platitudes or any such nonsense that's going to make it better. I don't. What I do have is an ability to share my experience. I have an ability to talk to you and hopefully encourage that you want to talk back or engage in some kind of way. And maybe through this medium of having a little fun on YouTube and engaging, maybe we can find a way to do that together, which I think is fun, which is my motivation, I think a lot of other places, though, that people can find themselves doing whatever they want to do, engaging whatever they want to engage in, I think there's elements of escapism. I think there's elements of maybe wanting to kind of like disengage from other things and engage in other things, perhaps. Maybe for want of a better way to articulate that, but that's where I am at. So, like I said, I know who I am. But be that as it is, I definitely, as I said before, as you chronologically hear these from the first to the 3,000th or whatever in the future, hopefully, pray that happens. Hopefully there is a progression and a development and improvement that happens not only with just experience, but practice. Say practice makes perfect. I will never be perfect. But hopefully, as I said, if I can wiggle myself a little bit into your consciousness and, maybe this is something that eventually, I would probably guess that most people, just like a lot of content on YouTube, probably have like the 30, I don't know if it's 30 seconds anymore, probably like a 3-second window. I think most of what I've experienced, like with entertainment, like with TV and radio, usually the window is much smaller than that. I would say like shows like American Idol, for example, which was a huge hit in the 2000s and that kind of thing. It's like there's so much of that particular show that's manufactured and it's edited in certain ways. And, I'm not going to go into great detail about that, but the fact is what you see isn't necessarily as much about authenticity as much as it's a show. It has to be entertaining, right? I mean, if You aren't watching someone who thinks that they can sing make a complete fool of themselves. Uh, you know, then, like I said, you're going to switch to something else more than likely, right? If there's not something there for you to watch, and I know, from my understanding, the new American Idols, they, at least on ABC, they've pretty much cut out that kind of thing because, it's obviously a bit negative. But the truth of the matter is that I think also there too, at least my experience, any kind of real audition or, where people are listening to try to like find what the next big thing is or who might be appealing and who they might be able to market and sell in a certain way. My experience is that usually the window is probably almost about 10 seconds, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more. And I think in terms of a lot of different aspects, both if it's someone who's singing, for example, and a person who's doing the judging knows exactly what they're looking for. That doesn't necessarily mean the person who's judging can sing or that they're an expert in singing. But if their background is in producing and making something as far as the marketing is concerned, as far as sellable, Simon Cowell or, Paula Abdul or the Jackson guy. They definitely know what it takes to market and make a success because they've been successful, arguably, regardless to how you feel that has come about. But in general, the window is usually pretty short. I don't think it's always short in my experience, but it's usually pretty short. And so, going into what I was talking about specifically with this channel and the, bunch of other people that do the exact same thing, I think the attention span, the audiences that are generally out there, your window is probably even less than maybe 10 seconds. I would say, and I certainly am a person who's very similar. I know what I like, and I know what I don't like, right? I can tell you within 5 seconds of seeing a video or a clip or something like that, whether I have any interest in it at all. In fact, I would say as I've gotten older, that window, it probably has shrunk quite a bit from about 10 seconds, or even from 30 seconds to 10 seconds to maybe about 5. But be that as it may, I don't say that as much of a boast as much as it is. It's just the truth. It's who I am. It's the way that I go about, what I fancy, what I like. And so when it comes to anyone listening to this, I don't expect anything different. I don't expect, people to not be critical. I don't expect people to, maybe just more than anything, just go, what is this guy talking about, right? And that's okay. And, I could do some things like edit. I could do things, I could speak better or, polish myself and rake myself over the coals in terms of, each and every single, video or video voiceover that I do, making sure that it's as perfect as it can be. The problem is that I don't want to do that because I don't want to set myself up to being something that I'm not to begin with. And where the connection to that may be lost is that once, at least in my opinion, you start doing that, you don't really ever stop. And some people, that's a really good thing. Some people, that's a great thing. And I'm not saying that it is a bad thing or whatever, but that's not who or what I want to be. I am not a perfect person. I don't have anything here to sell you in terms of what you should do per se. I'm just, like I said, I'm reaching out. I'm flexing my ability or lack thereof, if that's the case, to communicate and to basically give my thoughts and expressions and, personality as it relates to who I am individually, how I view the world. And that respect, not a personality in terms of a character or whatever. I mean, I go by the name VoyMonk, but that's not particularly because I want you to think that, I don't know, a little robot per se specifically. The image is fine, but like I said, it's not a character. This isn't a show. And so much of what is out there, I think, and that contends in that particular space, it's brutal, man. It's brutal. Like I said, the window is usually, I'm going to guess, probably about 3 seconds now. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but and some people say that's tied to the attention span and, social media and where things have kind of become as far as instant media content. But I think there has to be more to it than that as well. I think collectively as a conscious, maybe we're getting a little bit more clear as to what we want as opposed to what we don't want. Because I would say one of the things about the 2000s, especially coming out of the 90s, is that the amount of options and the amount of different choices that people have or could make was exceptional. I mean, it was really, I grew up 3 or 4 channels minimum if you didn't have cable. And then, of course, if you had cable, maybe around 30 or 40 channels. And that's maybe if you were spending the money on the premium channels, right? Like HBO Cinemax and that kind of Skinemax, as it was called. But then as the digital age and the internet came about, and then it became hundreds, thousands of different channels. And by this point, I don't know, maybe it's in the millions, but that's a lot of options. Right? It's only 24 hours in a day. And if you fill any of that with the news and a lot of other things, I mean, it's on tap, right? There's no limit. There's no off switch in some of the cases, people don't turn off their computers anymore. I remember when personal computers, you actually shut it off after you were done using it. Now, I don't know that anyone ever shuts off their computer. I'm sure some people do. But the point is that the content being plugged in is, it's who we are. And so I think the goods and the bads that come with that, I think the precipice, I think, is where we're at, is where, we've reached billions of people as far as in terms of communication and things like that. And now, some people might call it regressive. Maybe some people say it's the end of the wild, wild west. But I think in some ways it might be just, we've gorged ourselves on so much that, the practicality of it is moved us towards where we have to whittle down to what we actually can consume. I mean, more than just our appetite, with our eyes, but we can actually consume, that we can digest, and that we can actually, experience. And so when I talk about this channel and why so much of what I don't do and what I do is important. That's why I do what I do. That's the self-awareness that I have, is that, if you can listen to this, any part of this, from start, it doesn't matter whether it's vlog number 1 or whatever. You can pick and choose whatever you want. If this is something that engages you, there is no obligation. There's also no returns. There's also no money back, and there's also no guarantees. This is just me talking. And hopefully, like I said, it just connects with you. I'm not selling you anything as a philosophy or whatever. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just a human being talking to you and sharing my life, sharing my perspective, sharing who I am, and not getting too carried away while in the process, and hopefully having fun. That is the who, what, where, why, and how in terms of this channel and the way that I do things. And You know, it's not going to be perfect. I'm not aiming to be perfect. It'll be better. My hope is that, as the future goes, that, it's not going to sound exactly the same vlog 1 as vlog 1000, but that not being because I've changed, just hopefully I've gotten better at knowing who I want, what I want, where I want to be, and how I want to say things. And hopefully if this channel builds, how it builds authentically, even if it's slow, even if it's never or whatever, it's together. It's the audience I want, and hopefully I'm the voice that you want to hear whenever you want to hear it. And like I said, there are no guarantees. There's no promises. There's no expectations for anything other than just what I'm doing, and that's it, I guess that could be seen as, don't put limitations. Don't say no. I remembered doing customer service. Probably a little tiny story. I worked for, it was King Video Cable. Then it became AT&T Broadband. No, Media One, then AT&T Broadband, and then eventually it became Comcast. Now, I think it's Xfinity or it's both. I'm not sure, but the whole idea is that there was psychology that was behind literally answering the phones, right? Saying, hey, hello, welcome to, such and such, right? And it's just, but there was a psychology behind handling calls, whether they were billing or technical calls. And maybe this exists today. If you're listening to this and you know what I'm talking about, please share. But the thing of it is that one of the things that we were told not to do is there were certain words that we were, I want to say forbidden. We were discouraged, somewhat forbidden from using. No, can't, won't. I mean, almost like it was a hostage negotiation or something. Because again, we wanted to sell a perception, even when it was just customer service, of what kind of customer service you were experiencing or getting, even though that wasn't necessarily always the case, and usually it wasn't. And so, like I said, saying no, using limited words, right, in your vocabulary, sometimes projected or, they said was perception of negativity or whatever, especially when you were trying to engage with someone in a way that you could sell them something or upgrade, to a premium package or something like that. And the thing is, I could understand the psychology and the thinking and why those tools are used in that way. It's just, I think on the other side of it, I think it misses an opportunity as well. Is that, well, yes, limits suck, and nobody wants to be told no. And, nobody wants to know or realize that, hey, maybe this might be the line for me. I mean, I don't want to give any, but I think if I want to do something, I can do something. I try to do something. Find that inspiration, be inspired to do it or not do it. But I don't want to feel as though, especially when I was younger, that the word no was always negative, or that me not being able to do something was always a bad thing as well. In fact, I would think the greater part of any kind of wisdom, if I have or ever had at all, was sometimes hitting that brick wall and saying, okay, that's it. There's only 4 channels, so you have to pick one of the shows to watch. There aren't 200 to 300 or 400 other channels, which is nice. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or options are a bad thing either. It's just that, sometimes things are what they are. This is just who I am, and I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. And if that's not entertaining, that's not interesting, I respect that, and that's not a negative thing. But I hope as this gets better, hopefully for the right reasons, anyone's listening or engaged in this, that this becomes the thing that people want to do. Like I said, no hard feelings. I'm not your cup of tea. That's okay. But if I am your cup of tea, or it's something like I said, you're not going to get a pony. There aren't going to be any unicorns. I'm not going to. I would appreciate anyone, of course, rating, subscribing, and engaging in all those types. I'd love it. But like I said, I'm not going to also say I love you, and in lieu of, or instead of just telling you my appreciation, that if you are listening, if you do give it a chance, I would love it. And hopefully, if you want to engage or you want to do the same thing or whatever, go for it. There's no money back guarantee. I don't want anyone to listen, out of the obligation or just. Hopefully you do it because you'd be having fun and you want to go along the ride. I know this is a pretty long Friday vlog. I mentioned that before. But yeah, this is who I am. And hopefully if you've listened up to this point, and I'll probably mention all these things in some capacity again, because I've done that pretty much throughout a lot of the 100 and some video vlogs and video voice vlogs that I've done. And that's because that's who I am. I definitely plan on doing some other things in terms of content. And I do talk about other things, my passions and stuff like that. And I think going in this next week, plan on doing that a little bit more. But it's not a show. Like I said, I would probably say one of the biggest challenges of doing this video voice vlog is sometimes just to be inspired to know what I'm going to talk about and how. Because like I said, I won't just write it down and make a script or whatever. And there might be aspects to that as far as production that I do as opposed to what I don't. But for the most part, I don't. I just do these because I feel like it, because I enjoy it. And hopefully that is something that would be enough, and me progressively getting better is something that you would look forward to. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, that's why you would subscribe and listen whenever, however you want. And maybe join the VoyMonk community with for a lack of any other description. But you want to engage, comment, make a video. I'll be more than glad to respond to you. But I think that's going to do it for this video voice vlog. I'm VoyMonk. Yeah. Take care.